Hello everyone, I'm Alvarez and this is Alvarez Metalworks. So this is part 3 and the final part of the Jetta rust repair repaint video, whatever you want to call it. Basically last night I ended part 2 abruptly. Just finished it, just stopped because I had 20 minutes of video footage and I didn't need to make that video any longer. Have a little bit more dolphin glaze to block out the sand. Not that big of an issue. I'll take care of it. You guys won't see that. You don't need to see it. Then we're going to get this thing all wrapped up in plastic and tented off so we can start shooting primer, undercoat, and then eventually paint tonight. So sit tight. I'll be right back. So right now I'm just masking everything off. I've got the rest of that dolphin glaze blocked out, and I've got a roll of plastic. I'll show you guys here in a minute. It's made by a company called Norton, I believe it is. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It's inside my house. Most of what I have to work on this car is inside the house, staying at a decent temperature, so that I'm not having any issues with trying to warm up paint product or primer or anything like that. So anyway, I've got a big roll of plastic. It's paintable plastic. So one thing you guys need to keep in mind when using plastic for painting is if you're not using the proper plastic, what happens is your paint, your overspray, will get onto the plastic, but it won't stick, and it'll be like a dust. And then every time you pass through it or pass by it, the air from your gun is going to blow that crap around and it's going to fall into your paint. So you need to get the proper plastic for automotive painting. Most of them will say that they're paintable, so that this way any of that paint that sticks or lands on it will stick to it. So I'm taping up the tail lights. I've got the other side done. Let me pull you guys off the tripod and show you what I got going on here. I've got about 2 rows of tape going up and over. I've taped over the felt seal at the top, not on this other seal. I know there's going to be overspray that gets in there. It's just going to be what it is. It's not going to get onto this. If it does, it's going to get on the side. It won't get on the surface area. And that's what I'm concerned about. I didn't want any paint on this felt because when you close the door, I don't want it sticking to here or ruining the felt for that matter. So I brought it down the windshield. Now I'm going to work this area a little bit better. This is a big concern for overspray to get inside of here. There's a little plastic trim piece that's coming off. So I gotta work around that a bit. I've got all my tape tucked in to the hood and then kind of pulled around. And then here at the headlight, I'm just dropping it down right here. I'm not going to tape off the whole headlight. Okay, the reason why I taped off the whole tail light is simple. Because when you look at the rear of this car, the center section of the car comes down here, and that's where my plastic's going to be. I don't want to have to wrap the plastic around that tail light or have to be concerned about getting it all tucked around there fine. I'm going to drop it down here, down the center, and probably stop it right about here. And then I'm going to bring plastic around the rear bumper and just leave a skirt basically hanging and come around to there. Okay, so we're all ready to shoot the primer. Just got my daughter wiping everything down with acetone right now. The ice. If you look, all the paint here has been scuffed up. I'm using a maroon Scotch Brite pad. because all this surface is going to be painted, you have to scuff it up, or the paint's never going to stick. It's not going to stick to a glossy finish. So I got this side completely ready. I got to cover up that tire though, and this side's basically ready. Just need to finish wiping it down, cover up this tire, and then I'm going to be mixing up some primer. Alright, be right back. Okay, so we're getting ready to mix up the primer. I got this stuff at Napa. Never used it before. Obviously, I'm not a paint and body guy. Got the paint, got the hardener. I'm going to be using my gravity feed, or my siphon feed gun. It's a low volume, low pressure that I got from California Air Tools. Model number R200. I'll put a link down in the description of where you can find that. I need to tighten up this regulator. I've got a new desiccant filter here to make sure that I'm getting good dry air. And I'm not going to need very much primer because, quite frankly, I've got to do 2 coats, but I don't really have too many areas where I need a primer on the car. So I'm using a filter. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and do a 4-to-1 mixture. This has already been shaken up. And I'm making a mess immediately, as you can see. Okay. So I'm going to set that aside. Got the hardener here. I'm going to take my mixing stick, make sure it's nice and clean, and then just mix this up. And hopefully this will be enough. I don't think I need much more than this. Like I said, I'm not shooting too much of this on the car. So let me get this mixed up. I'm going to get it in the gun, and I'm going to start spraying. Okay, so I didn't show you guys the process of actually priming. I've got most of this door primed. This is the door that had the rust issue in this vicinity. Got everything primed. It's got a good 3 coats on it. So I need to come back here now with like a 400, probably a good 400 grit or higher grit and sand it out. You can see the sand scratches in the finish from the coarser grit that I was using. Ideally, you don't want that after prime. Ideally, you want that knocked off before you go into prime. I think I'm going to be okay. I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to sand it. If I have to shoot another coat of primer after I sand it, I will. But I don't think I'll have to. We'll see how it goes. One thing that I did notice once I started priming this and got a light over on this side of the car is that I missed some damage here as well as here. So for the sake of not having to completely redo this door, what I'm going to do is, where I talked about putting the bed liner, not bed liner, undercoat, just to the rocker, I'm going to bring it like this down into this seam and then across here, right above that, okay? What that'll do is it'll add some more protection to the bottom of the doors, but it'll allow me to go in there and strip that issue out of there without having to go back and prime it. and then I could just, spray that, the texture, the undercoat, and then let it set up, and then I can paint the car. Essentially I don't have to deal with that kind of problem anymore. So outside of that, everything seems to be going pretty good. Okay, so I'm sanding off the primer. I'm actually hitting some of the black as well. I'm using 400 grit. Okay, I'm using the smaller DURA-BLOCK block, but there's areas I'm going to come back in through here by hand and sand. Like I said, I'm not doing the below that curve. I'm not even going to bother with that. That's just a waste of time. The reason why you sand the primer is, hopefully I can show this to you guys. I'm not sure how well it's going to come up. Let's see if we can get this to show. There, you can kind of see it. You see, I've sanded here, and you got the speckled look, right? What that is high and low spots, almost like orange peel. So the duller areas are the areas that were hit with the sandpaper, and the kind of shiny or lighter areas, those are the low spots. That's why you use blocks. So I'm going to keep sanding all the primer area with 400 grit, and what that will do is it'll knock that down and give me a nice flat smooth surface to be able to apply the actual paint to. If you don't do this, what's going to happen is you've already set yourself up for some pretty serious orange peel. So the goal is to smooth it out as best as possible so that when you apply your final coats, that it's as smooth as possible and there's less buffing and wet sanding later on down the road. And shoot that door jamb. I'm going to cover up my Project Pathfinder over here because I don't need any overspray landing on my truck. That would piss me off. As far as the ambulance project, I don't really give a damn. Cover up my toolboxes and a few other things. I don't think the overspray is going to be that bad, to be perfectly honest with you. If I'm just shooting the door jamb, I think we're going to be okay. The thing is I need to shoot the door jamb with at least 2 to 3 coats. The spec sheet on this says that I can reapply a second coat when it's smooth to the touch, which is, it's going to be at least 5 minutes. So it's probably just like the primer. I'm going to probably have to give it a good, 15 minutes or so before I can shoot another coat. But I would, like I said, I would like to get that door jamb all dealt with. Okay, everyone. I pulled all the plastic off the inside of the door, and I pulled that door shut with a tie-down strap so that I can paint the entire side of the car all at once. Now, if you look down here at the very base of the door, I use that undercoating that I showed you guys earlier in the videos. This is paintable, as it says. It's really good stuff. I use that to replicate the textured rocker panel paint. I don't know what they call it. And you can see how I brought it up into that area above the roll in the door and up over here. So basically I covered up all of the pit holes, or the pits in the paint and things like that. And on this side where I had missed a couple of spots in all the prep work, because it was dark on this side of the car, I ground those areas down with a strip disc, one of those 3-inch strip discs that I got from Rourke Supply, and taped this all off and painted it with that. And it hides it real well. It covers up all that pitting really well. It's on top of the primer, so it's just an extra added layer of protection for the metal that's left, and for any chips and things like that. These areas are prone to rust out here, because these are the areas that accumulate salt and the snow, and it packs up in those areas. So the more layers I have, the better it is going to be to protect it. So now I'm just I'm waiting for that area to dry. I put a new sheet of plastic over the center. I covered up Project Pathfinder, and now while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to wrap this around the bumpers, both front and back, and mix up some paint and start spraying. So I'm sorry I'm not showing you guys the painting process. You know, quite frankly, I'm running out of time, and I'm contending with a lot of dust and things like that. You see I got the rear quarter painted. There's a ton of dust in it. I shot this with no tint. I shot this with sanding dust all over the rest of the car. This was wiped down though. Now the only reason I shot that is because I had to shoot the store jamb, and quite frankly I wanted to see how well the finish would turn out. I wanted to see how much dust I was going to be dealing with, and looks like I'm going to be dealing with a lot of dust. So here's the deal. You saw that I got the plastic torn out of the door. This is all uncovered. I'm going to go with my original plan now that I have the door jamb painted, and I'm going to pull this door closed with a ratchet strap, and then I'm going to wipe down the entire car. Well, first this fender area, the quarter, I'm going to hit that with about 600 grit, just lightly scuffing it, and one of these maroon Scotch Brite pads, and then I'm going to wipe down the entire car. Okay, I'm not going to use any air guns to blow anything off. I've got too much dust in here. I haven't been in this shop for all day long because I've been at work, so I'm going to try to avoid stirring up any dust. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to do that, scuff that up, then I'm going to wipe the whole car down. I'm going to get under here and tape the areas that I'm going to put the undercoating on, and I'm going to spray the undercoating. I'm going to let it sit until it's, you know, dry enough. That stuff dries pretty decent, you know, pretty quickly, and then I'm going to shoot the car. And so it's painted. Definitely not as good as I would have liked it to be. There's dust in it. Like I said, there's not a lot I can do about that, except for, you know, wet sand it later and buff it out. My shop's filthy. I mean, that's just is what it is. But, you know, we'll see how it looks when all the plastic's off. I got a couple of runs where I had to shoot into the door handles. I'll show you guys that in just a quick second. I'm going to try to speed this up because there's a lot of fumes in my shop right now, and I got to get the wood stove burned. Okay, everyone, clearly I screwed up that transition, but it's okay. You know, ultimately I'm going to show you the details that need to be addressed still in this paint. We'll be able to comment on some things that I've done between when I initially shot that video that I lost, that's why you're not seeing it, and where we're at right now, and I'm going to wrap up this video with where we're at right now. As you can see on the trunk, I've got some buffing compound and some towels and buffing pads, and I've got some other stuff here and there. I've started to do some wet sanding and buffing. The customer has stopped here at the shop, and we've talked money. We've talked about where he wants to see the car as far as being finished, and we're in a good place. I'm not stressed out nearly as much. Really, I'm not stressed out at all anymore. I'm pretty happy. He seems to be happy. Some of the things that I've done to the bumper and to the hood, I mean to the deck lid here, the trunk deck lid, tell me that, you know, maybe I didn't do as bad of a job as I initially thought. You know, it's ultimately things are working out really well. So with that being said, the big issue that I'm having here is dust. You see the speckles here? That's dust. Some of it is buffing compound spots, but it's dust. Especially here in the flare, you can see it. You see it right in there. So anyway, I've got to contend with that. There's a couple of runs. If you look right there, you can see one run. You can see another run right there. There was two big runs here and here that I got rid of. There's a couple on the other side. I'm going to show you how I got rid of the runs in this. I used the DURA-BLOCK, the flat one here. Got some 2000 grit paper, and I'm using the block. The block is very important. You don't have to use a DURA-BLOCK to do this, but a sanding block of some form or fashion is very important when trying to get rid of a run. The reason being is the point of using sanding blocks is to get rid of high points. You're knocking down the high points and you're getting them down to the low points. So if you don't use a sanding block and you just rub the area, the run, with like your finger and some sandpaper, your finger's going to contour around that run and it's going to sand down the area surrounding the run, which ultimately won't get rid of the run. And what's going to happen is you're going to sand through the lower level paint. A run has the thickness of paint in a run is extremely thick in comparison to the rest of the paint. So your goal is to not touch any of the surrounding paint and to just sand the highest point, which is the run. So you want to use some sort of a sanding block. I've heard of people using razor blades, not to slice it off, but to scrape the surface of it until you knock it down to the point where it's workable. I'm choosing to go this route. It worked really well. I'm really satisfied with it. I think that's the best method for me. What you guys choose to do if you end up in that situation is up to you. So, one of the other things that I had issues with was the transition between the old paint and the new paint, both in the bumper and on the deck lid. Now, hopefully I'll be able to show this. Yeah, it's showing up real well. You see the difference in shine here? The part on the left has been buffed, and the part on the right has not. Okay, that was the extreme difference between old and new paint. So here's that difference. You know, I got to do a little bit more buffing here, get rid of some of this stuff, but ultimately it's pretty good. The transition is not really noticeable. I mean, you have a single stage paint versus a base coat, clear coat. So there's going to be a little bit of difference as far as the depth is concerned, but it actually looks really, really good. I'm really satisfied with that transition now that I've buffed this area out. Now I can tell you what I'm trying to do on the old paint isn't really as difficult as what I'm trying to do on the new paint. The new paint, I'm trying to deal with sand or dust in it and orange peel, knocking down the orange peel. On the old paint, I'm trying to deal with oxidation. Okay, that's what you're seeing here is oxidation. So, you know, there's some scratches and stuff. I'm not really worried about those scratches because they're even in the areas that I buffed. I'm just trying to get the paint to match. If there's a scratch in it, there's a scratch in it. But if the main part of the paint doesn't match, then we're contending with a bigger problem. So here on the bumper, there was a tremendous difference between the quarter and the bumper. And I mean, there's still a bit of a difference. I can see it. That's due to a few reasons. Number one, the single stage versus base coat, clear coat. But also it has to do with the fact that it's a bumper. Okay, these bumpers, these plastic bumpers, they, for whatever reason, the paint looks different on them than it does on the metal. You know, you would think that it would be the same based on the primer you're using and based off of the fillers that you're using, so on and so forth. But I've never, to this day, seen even brand new cars where the bumpers match the rest of the paint. Unless the side of the car is all that plastic, that ABS plastic or whatever. Anyway, let's speed this up. The other issue that I talked to the customer about, my buddy, was down here on the rockers. You see how some of it looks like it's a shiny glare, some of it's dark? What that is it's not a glare. When I sprayed the undercoating on here, the paintable undercoating, apparently I got areas where some of the texture was uneven, some of it was smoother, and some of it was more rough. The issue with that is when I went to go paint it, the smoother areas tend to glass out better. The paint spread out on it and looks better as far as paint is concerned, and it doesn't show the texture. The rougher areas, it shows the texture. Originally, I had planned and prepared to be able to mask that off again and shoot it again with undercoat. The owner's totally fine with that, so I'm done there. He doesn't care if I do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot the inner fender wells again, and then I'm going to put the inner fender wells in, attach all the bumpers, get this thing sitting on its own tires, and then I'm going to continue to wet sand and buff this car. So I'm going to show you the products that I'm using to do this. Number one, where the hell is it? I've been using my Milwaukee drill with a 3-inch buffing pad and 3-inch, hook and loop deal with an arbor on here. It's working, it's just working really slow. So what I went out and did, this is the compound I had been using. Okay, 3M makes this 3-stage buffing compound, polish compound, whatever you want to call it. Okay, this is the 3rd stage. It's the finest one. This stuff's expensive. It's like 45 bucks a bottle, at least at my local auto finishing place. So I started with this because I bought this before I had talked to the customer about money. And quite frankly, I was in way over my head, buried in this, and potentially going to just barely break even. So I just went with the 3rd stage and was just going to work really hard to get it to look right. So after talking to him, I quickly ran to the store before they closed, got there about 15 minutes before they closed, and grabbed the 1st stage. Okay, they didn't have the 2nd stage. I've used this stuff before, and going from the 1st to the 3rd is okay. It's not ideal, but you can do it. So I'll put a link in the description on where you could probably get those 3M products through Amazon. I had to go local because I needed them right now, unfortunately. I probably could get a little bit better price on Amazon, I think. I'm not sure. We'll find out when I put the link in the description. But either which way, I'm going to wrap this up. I did want to talk about something really, really quick, though, before I end this video. I know a lot of you guys, you see us do projects like this on YouTube or on TV or wherever. You see us guys that build things and paint cars and fix them up and do these things. I know I used to be one of you, and I still am to a certain degree. But what a lot of you guys tend to say is, I really wish I could do that. I really wish I could learn how to paint cars. I really wish I could learn how to weld. I really wish I could learn how to do fabrication and stuff, I want to say something, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way. I'm trying to say this as a means of encouragement. The only difference between somebody like me or any of those people that you're watching and you is simply the fact that we decide, hey, I'm going to try that. I don't care what it takes, I'm going to try it. And even if we're on an extremely tight, limited budget, we'll buy the little things that we need. Maybe today we go out and buy an angle grinder. Maybe next time we go out and buy a cheap Chinese affordable welder, Everlast or whoever, maybe the next day you go out and buy an affordable paint gun or something like that. Anything. I'm always looking for deals. I'm always looking to chintz out and be as cheap as possible so that I can accumulate the tools I need to do professional work. Some people will say, well, you need top quality tools to do professional work. Well, that's horse shit. What you need is tools that work. That's it. And if they last forever, fantastic. If they don't last forever, at least they last long enough to get the job done, and you can make some money and you can reinvest. Not all of us have $100 grand to throw into a shop. So, with that being said, I started doing this stuff when I was unemployed. Okay, I've been doing a lot of this type of work since I was a teenager. But I've been gradually building up skills for years and years and years and years and years. Many, many skills. Everything from upholstery to now I'm learning auto body stuff and fabrication, and I'm constantly learning. I watch YouTube channels and stuff on TV because I watch it not to see the cool stuff that they're making. I watch it because I'm learning things from them. Okay? So, I just really want to push you guys in the direction of saying, stop saying I wish. Just go out and do it, okay? Don't be scared. Don't bury yourself, though. Don't be stupid and take your daily driver and cut it up one weekend and not be able to get the thing fixed up so you can get back to work. But take baby steps if you need to, but ultimately jump in. Don't jump in head first and break your neck, but jump in the pool. You know, jump in the pool feet first and see what's going to happen. That's the only way you're going to learn. You can go out and go tens of thousands of dollars into debt, going to these trade schools and things like that. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it, okay? For the amount of money that you're spending on and going into debt, you could use that money, a fraction of that money, to buy tools. And just go in your garage and start trying the tools. Start working with them. Gain experience. That's more valuable than these trade school educations, okay? And I'm telling you that based off of me getting paid pretty damn good right now. And my employer being very happy with the fact that I have a very broad range of skill sets. You know, so, you know, get out there and try these things. Don't be scared. Don't wait for somebody to hold your hand. Go try it. You know, you're going to make mistakes. It happens. We all do it. We learn from it. We move on. So, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe, comment, and like. And absolutely make sure to check out RoarkSupply.com. They're supporting my channel. They're supporting you. And as a thank you to you, from them to you and me to you, use coupon code METAL to get 10% off anything you order from them. So with that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.